Many of you out there may know the song The Day the Music Died by Don McLean. Well, do we now know the day, or at least the year, that the ACC died, or at least started to decline? Florida State, in new amended filings as part of their court case with the ACC, may have told us that. Let's talk about it right after this word from my sponsor. Ladies and gentlemen, this episode is brought to you by Dutch Miller Automotive, where friends and family pricing means you get the best deal right up front on any new or pre-loved vehicle in stock every time. With brands like Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Kia, Hyundai, Ford, GMC, Buick, and Subaru, the Dutch Miller Automotive family is always growing and ready to put you in the car or truck you've been searching for. Check out our inventory across West Virginia at DutchMillerAuto.com or come in today to the home of friends and family pricing, only at a Dutch Miller Automotive store near you. What is up? Welcome into another edition of Kuz's Corner. Come on in, make yourself comfortable, belly yourself up to the bar, and let me pour you out this shot of top shelf college football content. On tap at Kuz's Corner today, we're talking conference realignment again. We're talking the Florida State saga with the ACC, the gift that keeps on giving for us content creators. Before I dive into that, I want to remind you, if you like this video, please hit the thumbs up button below. It helps the YouTube algorithm. If you can drop a comment below, give me your thoughts on it, that helps as well. Share it with your friends and family. Also, help me get to 7,000 subscribers. I'm around 100 away. Need your help to get there. So if you haven't subbed yet, please do that. Now let's get on with the video. January 30th, which is yesterday, I'm recording this on January 31st. Florida State came out with 56 pages of amended filings in their court case with the ACC, where they're suing the ACC to try to get out of their grant of rights agreement. I didn't do a video on this, but a week or so ago, the ACC came out with amended filings, basically saying, hey, this case needs to be handled in North Carolina, not Florida. And oh, by the way, Florida State released confidential information. And there were other things in there, but those were kind of the two high points. They released confidential information they shouldn't have released. Well, today, Florida State, or yesterday, I should say, Florida State came out with amended filings, and man, did they really hit the ACC hard. And you talk about revealing information. Boy, did they. Let's talk about it. All right. Now, look, I found this on X. An attorney by the name of Mitt Winter, who follows all the NCAA court cases, follows all the conference realignment cases and things like that, puts out a lot of really good stuff on X. I'll leave a link to it, to his tweet in the description box if you want to go read it for yourself. It's 56 pages long. I did read it myself. I did read through the whole thing, or at least most of it. But instead of trying to read it all to you, I just decided to hit the highlights. But here are the highlights, basically, of what Florida State is saying in these amended filings. First off, I understand the subject matter of this is not as earth-shattering as the subject matter in the song "The Day the Music Died." I understand there's no lives at jeopardy here. Nobody's dying. This is college sports. I get that. But when reading these, that was the first thing that popped into my head. Man, do we now know when the ACC really died, or at least started that descent? And it really all started back in 2010, according to Florida State. Now, let's keep in mind, we're only getting one side of the story here. This is Florida State's version of this. I'm not trying to take sides. I'm just trying to give you the news and report to you what I'm reading and give you my thoughts on it. Now, but according to Florida State, they're accusing former ACC Commissioner John Swofford of making deals that were in the best interest of the ACC, but not in the best interest of its member institutions. And it all started with a Raycom deal, according to them, that was signed by Swofford and a consultant he hired back in 2010. Now, you go back a couple of years, Raycom had been doing business with the ACC and the SEC both for several years, for decades, it says. But in 2007 or 2008, somewhere in that time frame, they lost the deal with the SEC, Raycom did. So that put them in a really, really bad spot financially. Well, it just so happens, and Florida State was sure to mention this in their filings, it just so happens that John Swofford's son had just been given a position, a high-ranking position, at Raycom. So, they're not flat out accusing John Swofford of nepotism, but they kind of are. But nonetheless, they lost. The Raycom loses the SEC deal. They hired John Swofford's son. They're looking, pretty rough financially. There were layoffs and everything within Raycom. Swofford's son avoided those. Well, in 2010, when it was time to negotiate a deal, Swofford made sure to tell media partners they were negotiating with, hey, I want to make sure Raycom is included in this deal. And in an article in the Sports Business Journal that was written in 2010, they even quoted Swofford, and I'm paraphrasing this quote, but he basically said it tugged at his heartstrings. He felt the need to help Raycom because of their long-term relationship. Obviously, he didn't mention his son. That wouldn't have been a good look. And maybe that had nothing to do with it. But again, Florida State made sure to mention that multiple times in these filings. ESPN agreed. ESPN's head at the time, John Skipper, was also really close with John Swofford. They were both UNC grads. ESPN agreed to include Raycom in the deal. Now, according to Florida State, that decreased the value that each school got from this deal. They're saying, hey, if they had to just put this out to bid, let Raycom bid on it, along with ESPN, along with Fox, we would have got a better deal. We would have gotten more money. Instead, it went to ESPN, who then turned around and sublicensed content to Raycom. So that may have hurt the value of the deal. And in their eyes, in their filings, they're saying Swofford did this for the wrong reasons. He was looking out for the good of Raycom and the ACC brand versus the actual schools in the conference. Now, they also claim, Florida State claims, that the deal hurt the ACC when they were trying to start the ACC network. The ACC network was supposed to have started in 2016. It got delayed and didn't start until 2019. And they're saying that a big reason for that was the Raycom deal. They're saying ESPN had sold some of the rights to Raycom, who then turned around and subleased some games to Fox Sports, ESPN's biggest competitor. So how in the world was ESPN going to then get those back, the rights to that back, which they wanted before they would start the ACC network? They wanted those rights back so that they could have more content for the ACC network. Well, how were you going to get that when it was your biggest competitor that had the rights, that had subleased those rights from Raycoms? Anyway, they had to work through all of that. And it took 3 years to do that before they could actually get the ACC network off the ground, which put the ACC even further behind the eight ball when it came to competing with the SEC and the Big Ten, which is the reason they're trying to get out of the league in the first place. Now, speaking of the ACC network, Florida State is basically claiming that Swofford and his consultant lied to ACC members by telling them that ESPN would not agree to start the ACC network until all members agreed to sign an extended grant of rights to 2036. Florida State is saying that was never the case. They're saying, according to the ESPN agreements, that ESPN never gave them that ultimatum, even though John Swofford and his consultant told the members that they did. They're claiming that didn't happen. Now, again, this is Florida State's side of the story. I'm only reporting what the filing said, and then at the end, I'll give you my thoughts on it. FSU's filing claims that was not true, and according to ESPN agreements, that they were misled in assigning the grant of rights based on false information. A key to the case here. A key to them getting out of the grant of rights, or possibly getting out of those grant of rights. And speaking of those grant of rights, and speaking of being misled into signing them, FSU is also claiming they were coerced into signing them. In 2016, the reports have been out there that Florida State was not on board to sign these extended grant of rights through 2036 at first. They had to be talked into doing so. And according to Florida State's recent filings, they're saying the way the ACC went about doing that, in their eyes, was not the right way to go about it. Instead of talking to Florida State's board of directors or board of governors as a whole, or board of regents, I'm not sure what they're called, instead of talking to them as a whole, they got the individual members in a room one at a time and basically double teamed them, is the word that Florida State used, I think. Double teamed them and talked each individual board member into signing the agreements. Now, I'll be honest with you. Those guys on those folks on the Florida State board should have been tough enough and strong enough to stand up if they truly believed it wasn't the right thing to do. I think to me, that's a little bit of a weak argument, in my opinion. Florida State signed it. They agreed to sign it. Yes, they may have gotten coerced into doing it. They shouldn't have let them coerce them. Now, let's jump. That grant of rights extension was signed in 2016. Let's jump ahead to 2023, when the ACC added Cal, Stanford, and SMU. According to FSU's amended filings, They claim that the additions of these schools actually diluted the value of the conferences, media value. They use the fact that the Big 12 and other P4 leagues turned them down, those schools down, as proof that they aren't valuable to ESPN or any other potential media rights holders. They're saying, look, the Big 12 wasn't willing to take them. The Big 10 wasn't willing to take them. The SEC wasn't willing to take them. Therefore, what's that prove? That these entities aren't valuable. Cal, Stanford, SMU bring zero value when it comes to media dollars. They even mentioned in there they're great institutions. They have great academics. But when it comes to what matters in college athletics, they don't move the needle. They add no value. But according to FSU, the way the ESPN agreements are written, the ACC can decide to add schools whenever they want to. And ESPN has to pay for them, basically. The reason that is because in the agreement, ESPN did not want the ACC to drop below 14 members, or 15 in the case of Notre Dame, who's a partial member. If they drop below that number, they can come back to the table and renegotiate the deal. Well, according to Florida State, because of that rule, because of the way that was written, it gave the ACC the power basically to go say, hey, we're going to add these 3 schools without talking to ESPN about it. And Florida State feels like they should have gotten ESPN's input on it because they're worried about the future media deals. When we go to the table in the future to renegotiate media deals, which, by the way, could be as early as 2027, because we also found out, and I've talked about this in past videos, we've also talked about how even though the grant of rights between the ACC and its schools are through 2036, ESPN actually has a right to walk away from the media deal with the ACC in 2027. They don't have to renew it in 2027, which is another thing FSU's pissed about. They're like, we signed this grant of rights to 2036. We get no added value for it financially. All we got was the ACC network, which, oh, by the way, they would have given us anyway. So why did you tell us all this, mislead us into signing this grant of rights agreement through 2036 that now it's going to cost us $572 million to get out of, approximately, when we didn't have to have it? And it brought no additional value for our member institutions. All it did was lock all these schools in to the ACC long term, and they get nothing in return for it. Now, they go with this filing. It gives financial information. It talks about the value of the media deal. It does go up 4.5% each year, but that does not keep up with the market. The market is not up 4.5% every year. We've seen the Big 10 and the SEC go out and get these gargantuan media deals, yet the ACC stuck with this 4.5% increase every year. Even the Big 12 got a better media deal than the ACC has right now. Now, the Big 12 doesn't have a network, but they are making more on their base media deal than what the ACC is, and that was mentioned in these filings as well. And I don't blame Florida State for being upset, and I totally understand their argument. And if they were truly duped into signing these grant of rights agreements, then they have a fair claim. But here's my question to Florida State fans and to Florida State leadership. Why did you wait until now to bring this all to light? Why were you not unhappy about this, I don't know, 5 years ago, 4 years ago? Why? Why now? You didn't bring it to light until you saw the Big Ten and SEC get these major deals, and then all of a sudden you have an issue with this? I don't know. I can kind of see both sides of this argument, to be honest. But again, there has to be some good faith when signing these, quote, contracts, which is what this grant of rights is argued to be. There has to be some good faith here. And if someone's misled into signing it with false information, if that actually happened, if Florida State is accurate in their assessment of this, then, man, I tell you what, this could really open the floodgates. It could get them out of the league. There could be other schools to follow. We still are looking out for what Clemson's going to do. We're still listening for what North Carolina's going to do. This could open the floodgates for other schools to leave that league and potentially cause this conference to implode. But it'll be interesting to see how does the ACC respond to this? Do they come out with their own new filings of their own? I'm watching intently here to see what happens. Personally, again, I'm not an attorney, but it really looks to me like Florida State has a legit case. My only argument is this: why did you sign it? Why did you agree to sign it? And why are you just now bringing it up? That's the two questions I would like to ask Florida State folks. Why is the school just now bringing this to light? And why did you sign it in the first place? Why did you sign that draconian, what you call draconian grant of rights agreement in 2016? You shouldn't have signed it. You shouldn't have let two people talk you into signing it. That part I have a little bit of an issue with there. But anyway, just let me know what you think in the comments section. Don't forget, if you like this video, if you found it useful, please hit the thumbs up button. If you found it not useful and sucky, hit the thumbs down button. Also, I want to give a shout out to my VIP channel members real quick. I want to give a shout out to PW Riggs, Travis Anderson, Roy Harrison, and Matthew 1981. These are just 4 of my paid VIP members here at the channel. If you want to become part of that exclusive club, hit the join button below or go into my description box. There's a link there as well if you don't see a join button. I'm working on some really cool things to add as perks for being a channel member, in addition to the perks that are already over there, including special shout outs, early access to some content if you're a club level member, limited ads on some of that content if you're a club level member, access to my contests that I do occasionally on the channel. All of those are perks of being VIP members here at Kuz's Corner. I'll be announcing soon the new perks that I'll have to offer for my members as well. So be on the lookout. You're going to like it, especially if you're a West Virginia fan. I did a video several months ago about how ESPN could actually play a role in helping Florida State get out of the ACC. If you want to check out that video, it's right here. I appreciate you tuning in. Have a top shelf day, and Q Country Roads.